macroeconomy. Today we want to talk about the Kuznet curve. For the Kuznet curve, it's simply about the differences between economic growth and how it affects or impacts on income inequality. So here I got the Kuznet curve is a graph representing which a graphical representation of relationship between economic growth and income inequality. So it's all about how the economy continues to become better and the impacts on income inequality. But at the end of it all, for Kuznet, he believes that if the economy continues to grow and progress over time, it will bring about equitable or equal distribution of income. And that is the point. So the inverted U shape illustrates that with income increasing, which is the GDP per capita, the GDP per capita, countries initially experience increasing income inequality, but later on, the income inequality starts diminishing or decreasing. So about Kuznet, it's all about what happens at the beginning for an economy that is developing. And there comes to a point where that economy, the turning point, where the apex of income inequality will end. At that point in time, the economy starts evolving and becoming better, moving from probably industrialization to deindustrialization, and that starts making the income inequality to start diminishing. So we're going to look at the inverted U shape of Kuznet's graph. So the graphical representation, we have income inequality at zero. This is typically fully perfect equality according to the Gini coefficient. Zero means perfect equality. So, but this will only happen if the economy is operating in the primary sector, mostly agriculture. So the starting point, we start with the starting point. The starting point of the Kuznet curve shows low income inequality in a country with low GDP per capita. So these are GDP per capita. It starts increasing. Here, income inequality starts increasing. But at the initial stage, the starting point is zero, which simply means low income inequality. And for developing economies, and when we talk about developing economies, we're simply talking about economies that rely mostly on the primary sector. Which can be agriculture. Are you with me, please? Which can be what? Agriculture. So
the extraction of knowledge.
What?
The extraction of raw resources.
Yeah, raw materials. The extraction, yeah. So the starting point of the Kuznet curve shows low income inequality in a country with low GDP per capita. With a dominant agricultural sector often have a more equal distribution among individuals. The agricultural sector, it's what you produce, you earn. So mostly every now and then they produce equally, and the cost, the price of agricultural products are always going to be the same. But it is always attached to low income because it is raw material, it is not converted, it cannot be consumed immediately mostly. So it needs to be converted. As a result of that, the cost, the price is always cheaper. So the income for agricultural producers are always less. But it's always almost income, there's always income equality between them. So now go to the upward. For the upward sloping part of the Kuznet curve illustrates that as economic experience economic growth and progress from agricultural economies into industrialization. And this is where we are going. For industrialization, it simply means it's a process where a non-industrialized economy becomes industrialized. The transition between the primary sector to the secondary sector, that is industrialization. Do you get it? So with industrialization, it simply means the economy is moving from developing to a better economy. So at that point in time, income inequality starts to exist. Now there's income inequality. Why? Because the primary sector talks about the owners of capital. Now, with industrialization, there's better opportunity to invest further in capital goods. And who are those that will be able to invest? Those that own the factors of production, land, capital. So those that have land and capital will have the opportunity to invest. So investments would now bring about the need for the supply of labor. Did you get it? So here, look at what I wrote here. This is because with As a result, it will bring about increase in their wealth at the expense of those without capital. So those without capital, those without land, will have to rely on the owners of capital and the owner of land to have income. Do you get it? So that means about you supplying yourself for work so that you can earn a living. So industrialization is simply beneficial to those, the owners of assets, the owners of capital, the owners of land. So those without land, those without capital, those that rely mostly on agriculture will have to start changing their jobs because the secondary sector is taking over industrialization. So with industrialization, here comes income inequality at the highest, at the peak. And that's why we call it the Kuznet threshold. And there comes the turning point.
The what?
The turning point.
The turning point.
The turning point. Are you with me?
Yes.
So the turning point represents the highest order of inequality called the Kuznet threshold. This is the highest. After this, the economy starts progressing further, moving from industrialization to deindustrialization, which is the transition from the secondary sector to the tertiary sector. Are you with me?
Yes.
So the down slope now, there's going to be a downward slope. There's going to be what? A downward slope. So the downward slope part of the Kuznet curve illustrates that income inequality starts diminishing as GDP per capita starts increasing. So as soon as GDP per capita increases, that means there's economic growth and economic progression. This means the service sector is taking its shape. And because the service sector is taking its shape, the benefit of economic growth will start getting to those of low income earners. Did you get the point?
Yeah.
Is it making sense to you? Right?
Yeah.
Okay. So the downsloping part of the Kuznet curve illustrates that income inequality decreases as GDP per capita increases. Eventually, yeah. So this happens as a result of deindustrialization. I want to talk about deindustrialization. It simply means the decline of industrialization. So the transition from secondary sector to the tertiary sector. And now the economy is what? Developed.
Yes.
Do you get it? So because the economy is developed, firms will be making more profit because the service sector is where income is the highest. So firms will be making more profit. As a result of that, they will be able to pay more taxes to government. Low income earners will start earning more. Why? Because now they have money, they can have access to better education, that improves their opportunity for employment.
Yeah.
So look at it here. So this can be due to factors such as increased access to education. When you have access to education, it simply means you become more employable. And as soon as you become more employable, you have more skills, you can add to the human capital, it is expected that your income will rise. Do you get it? So income will start increasing. Also there's progressive taxation, where government will tax high income earner more than low income earner to redistribute the income. And that could also reduce the gap between the rich and the poor. Are you getting the second point there? So we're talking about factors that would happen when the economy becomes developed as soon as the GDP per capita starts increasing. And social welfare programs. Government can also come up with welfare pension schemes, unemployment benefits, and so on. So these will also increase income for low income earners. And as a result of that, the gap between the rich and the poor will start reducing. Do you get it here? Do you get it, please? So hence, the downward part of the Kuznet curve explains that income inequality eventually starts diminishing as the economy continues to progress. So the progression of the economy will bring about decrease in income inequality. So that's all about the Kuznet curve. It talks about how economic growth will bring about decrease in income inequality. Any questions about it? Yes.
My question is, if the Kuznet curve states that eventually the income inequality decrease, why are that countries nowadays having higher income inequality than they had before?
There comes the criticism. The criticism about the Kuznet curve. The criticism thing about Kuznet curve is that getting to this point, a decline in income inequality would not end because economy will continue to progress, and as soon as economy continues to progress, it will still pull back those who are unable, those who don't have the flexibility to adjust with time. So lack of flexibility, which might be natural or not natural, will bring about income inequality because there will always be income inequality. There will always be income inequality. Without income inequality, there's no reason, there's no motivation, there's no incentive for entrepreneurs. So which simply means the business of as soon as the business of as soon as income inequality declines to the least, here comes the beginning again. So it's not, income inequality is not going to end because it's an incentive. And progressive tax will not continue. Progressive tax will not always continue. Education will still be expensive because the population continues to increase. Do you get it? That is where we have the Malthusian theory in economics. Malthusian theory. Malthusian theory in economics. It talks about how population continues to increase in geometric progression, and the consumption of food, the production of food continues to increase in arithmetic progression. So with increasing population, it simply means education will later on become expensive because there's going to be scarcity. Progressive tax, government would want to keep the wealthy ones because if progressive tax continues to rise, if progressive tax continues in an economy, the owners of land, the wealthy people, would leave your country. You wouldn't want them to leave. So which simply means government will find a way to reduce progressive tax and the welfare programs. This increases government spending. There's going to be, and if government spending continues to rise as a result of voluntary unemployment, because if government continues to give welfare benefits to those who are unemployed, it simply means they have an incentive not to work.
Because of public travel.
No, they have, because government continues to give them welfare benefits. The unemployed becomes, they might be voluntarily unemployed because they have the incentive not to work based on the fact that government is spending. And that means government spending might as well increase than its revenue. And if government expenditure increases more than revenue, deficit again. Deficit then debt. So that's why the Kuznet curve still it has its own criticism that there's no way income inequality would end. Do you get it now? All these things will happen with income inequality because this is really about decline in income inequality. But these things might as well become a problem for government if government does not come up with policy to readjust. So readjustment will bring about income inequality because if government cuts progressive tax, it simply means the gap between the rich and the poor will start increasing again. If government cuts welfare program because of increasing national debt, it simply means income inequality will start increasing. If the access to education, which is a merit good, reduces, it means people will not have access to quality education, and that reduces their opportunity for employment. Income inequality increases. So the gap between the rich and the poor will continue to rise over time because these things are not sustainable. The lack of sustainability in here makes Kuznet curve complicated. Is it clear now?
Thank you.
Yeah.